Hello YouTube, today I wanted to bring you this video about first aid kits. First off, I would like to apologize in advance. Today is Canada Day, and there are fireworks being set off outside. Instead of going outside and blowing stuff up, I'm bringing you a video about safety and first aid kits. How appropriate. Anyway, jumping straight into this, I want to talk to you about two key points: depth versus breadth, and weight versus firepower, or utility. These are two concepts that I will touch on in the second half of this video, because there's a lot to cover. Jumping straight into this though, this first aid kit here, I bought from Walmart last week for $20, and it has many items, although it's redundant in some and lacking in others, and you will see that it was designed with a certain purpose in mind. Same concept with this one here, although it's been basically in storage since late 1990s. And then this first aid kit here, which I assembled based on some designs available out on the internet, made popular by YouTube users Nut and Fancy, as well as USN ER Doc, two very interesting individuals with many good insights into first aid, safety, and other equipment and cool gear reviews too. That aside, I want to start off with this first aid kit. So, you can see here this first aid kit is fairly bulky. It's 10.5 by 6.5 by 3 inches. It's pretty deep, but opening this up, what do we have? It opens up, nice layout, although it's a little loose and items can rattle around inside, so if you're opening it up expecting a familiar layout, that's one drawback to it. But on this left compartment we have some we have a 5x9 abdominal pad, we have some 3x3 gauze pads, a stack of like 20 or 30 bandages, large ones, some cotton tip applicators. Those can be useful for ointment and other different purposes like cleaning out wounds. We have a whole stack of benzalkonium chloride antiseptic pads. We have a instant cold compress, pair of vinyl gloves. We have a tensor bandage, a roller gauze, medical tape, some economy instruments, scissors and tweezers, alcohol swabs, some small knuckle bandages, some large knuckle bandages, some rectangular bandages, an aluminized mylar blanket, a first aid and CPR booklet in English and French for les Québécois, and some tongue depressors. And finally on this side we have, on this clear plastic pouch, we have some small band-aids, we have some butterfly closures, and other antiseptic pads, some alcohol pads here, and finally this povidone iodine ointment, used essentially as an antibiotic ointment. So you'll note this kit has a large amount of certain items and is lacking in others, if you're familiar with first aid kits. This kit is essentially designed with the average family in mind. It's not designed for any extreme incidents that may require blood absorption or wound closure at all. It's designed with cleaning out wounds and, dealing with small scrapes or cuts with your kids, or, when you're out playing sports, you run into a little injury, you would just want to put something on it quickly and keep going. This kit is not designed to handle a situation where typically additional medical help would be required afterwards, after that first response. You'll notice that you have redundant supplies with all these antiseptic pads. You have this cold pack. It has some utility. You have all this extra alcohol pads, some redundancy in bandages. You do have the nice tensor bandage, really cheap medical tape. The economy instruments, well, they're economy, but they're still better than nothing. Now, granted, you do have this 5x9 abdominal pad, and you do have this 3x3 gauze. The main drawback to this is, though, that you have no non-adherent dressings, which I will touch on later. Essentially, if you have a wound, you need to apply a non-adherent pad on top, followed by the gauze, and then medical tape to keep the pads on top and allow blood clotting to occur. Without that non-adherent pad, the gauze will stick to the wound, and when you go to remove it, you will tear the clot out and cause more damage to the wound, especially if the tissue is fragile or friable. But that's another entire issue. And you have this whole stack of bandages. Initial thoughts about this is, it's really bulky. You have a lot of redundancy and, a large stock of items. But essentially, it's just for the average family to buy, put somewhere in their car, or somewhere in their house, where they can essentially forget about it, and when they need it, they can just run to it and grab something out of it quickly. It's not designed to be monitored and taken care of as a kit, so much as just a convenient, localized area for storing first aid supplies. You lack any sort of wound closure or blood absorption other than those few gauze pads, but at least you have the case, and it's better than nothing. For those that have no sort of first aid ability, this is a start. You can always upgrade these kits too. Moving on, we have this other first aid kit. Similar in nature. This has been upgraded and modified over the years and has also been used. You have some alcohol pads, some benzalkonium antiseptic pads, insect sting relief pads, basically isopropyl alcohol or ethanol with a small amount of benzocaine as an anesthetic. You have latex gloves. You have this triangular bandage which has been used as a sling, mylar blanket, povidone iodine ointment. You have some gauze pads, some bandages, some knuckle bandages, finally some non-adherent pads. Essentially what you would do is you would apply this to a wound site and then apply some gauze on top to absorb the blood and then secure it with medical tape. Without this non-adherent pad on top of the wound, that gauze is going to cause more damage later on. Moving onwards, we have more bandages. I'm not even going to go into that. And again, we have another pocket first aid kit, this one brought to you by St. John Ambulance Group in both English and French. And finally, we have, shifting around here, EMT shears, plastic forceps, again, economy. We've added these to it many, many years ago, this 3M Micropore tape, some other cheaper medical tape. Overkill on the roller gauze, seriously. We never needed this much. To be honest, we've never used 99% of this kit, just Band-Aids. And that's what you'll typically go for. But you'll want the blood absorption and wound closure when you really need it. So it helps to be prepared. Another 5x9 abdominal pad, some larger 3x3 thick 8-ply gauze sponges, and an iPad. No, not the Apple iPad. This one is to basically apply some sort of blood absorption and cover to any sort of eye wound or wound near the eye, like your eyelid, or say you get hit in the face by a soccer ball or something. That would be where it would be useful. But again, a little bit of redundancy in some areas. You're never going to need this much roller gauze, but the purpose of this first aid kit also is to just simply build, stock, and leave in a cupboard for many, many years without use, and when you need it, you go for it. It's not so much for a preparedness, or even just really for more extreme circumstances, like if you're going hiking and you trip and fall, or your friend falls and cuts their leg open, they need some help. This kit would probably be able to handle it. The older one here wouldn't be able to. But again, it has a decent amount of breadth. It's better than the original first aid kit which I showed you, in that it has that extra blood absorption, but it's lacking in wound closure, which finally I will address in this kit in part 2.